say hello, and I would like to have some dialogue or some conversation with you. All right. So I hope that everything I'm saying so far is making sense and you're learning from it. If you have questions after the fact, do ask. All right. So that's all for the PMISP. As far as applying, read all the details. There's more information in the handbook. Let's click on the handbook. And I know the question is, but Phil, am I eligible? Let's see if you're eligible. Let's take a look. All right, so we have, in terms of eligibility, it says, secondary high school diploma, 36 months spent in scheduling, 40 contact hours of formal education in the specialized area of scheduling. And then if you've got a degree, 24 months in the area of scheduling and 30 contact hours. So whatever the case, you can get these contact hours from my training and coaching. If your firm is looking to get people PMI SP certified, then you need to reach out to me to help your firm. All right. So that's pretty much it. I'm done as far as the PMI SP is concerned. I know there's not a whole lot of interest in it, but I was hoping that there would be more interest in it, but probably not. Next thing I'm moving on to is the area of Microsoft Project. So in Microsoft Project, my friends, there's so many bells and whistles, but I want to dumb it down. I want to make it very straightforward for the project manager who has never been in here before. Think about this as Excel on steroids, okay? So when you go into Microsoft Project, the first thing you want to do is put these into auto-scheduled right here at the bottom, okay? When that's on auto-scheduled, that means Microsoft Project is going to work like a train with carriages. The carriages will not be left behind in the station. Everything will go along as it should, okay? So for this scheduling area, let's imagine we had a schedule we're developing to bake a cake. I like using very simple examples. If we're baking a cake, let's go ahead and hide that. Okay, if we're baking a cake, we would start off with a number of tasks. I'm just going to do a 5-task schedule just to show you the logic in how the system works, right? So let's go ahead and say we research the recipe, because scheduling is all about putting yourself into the mind of the person doing the work as much as possible. If they're not sitting down there with you, giving you tasks, well, you need to think, okay, if I was doing this, what would I do? So we can research the recipe, then we can buy ingredients, then we mix the ingredients, then we turn on the oven, then we put in the cake, then we bake the cake, and then we serve the cake, and then project end. Boom, those are your tasks. This is what we do in Microsoft Project. I've worked on schedules anywhere from a few hundred lines long to 20,000 lines long. You will find a lot of schedules that are big and heavy and unwieldy, and you just got to get more confident with using the tool daily to get to that point where you're in charge of thousands of lines of schedule and it doesn't faze you because you've used the tool enough. So you got to remember, I've been doing this for 20 years working in Microsoft Project. At first, it was rather intimidating, but I got my first breakthrough gig doing nothing but scheduling in 2004. And I had the pleasure of working with a program of projects with 19 big old schedules, all resource loaded, and I'm going to show you what resource loaded means. So like, if this is a tool you want to learn, again, you want to go pmanonymous.com, book some time with your buddy Phil. I'll walk you through. You'll be on your merry way. But hopefully what I'm showing you today is going to propel you to download a free version of Microsoft Project and begin playing with it, at least for the trial version, and just take your skills up a notch. All right, so the first thing we do in scheduling is we define activities, then we sequence activities. So how do we sequence activities here? Well, there's some shortcuts. The first way is to link everything in a linear fashion. If they were linked linearly, let's go to task. And right here, you see that link the selected task button. If you click on that, you can see everything is linked, just like that. But a more traditionalist way going through the logic will be to link based on the predecessors. So the predecessor of 2 is 1, the predecessor of 3 is 2, and so on and so forth. And that's how you can link them as well in the predecessors column. This is all PMP 101 stuff, but now you're seeing it come into life. All right, so that's how you would put in your predecessors. The next thing you would do is the days. Now, this would typically be in hours. So you could say 1 hour, 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours. And I'm just putting in random times just for the sake of the illustration. 1 hour. Let's put in 2 hours. Baking the cake. Turning on oven shouldn't take that long. 1 hour. Mixing ingredients. It shouldn't take this long, but I'm just doing it for effect so that you can see the schedule clearly. As far as the project end, that's a milestone. We put in a 0 day for that. And that's your project, right? And if you wanted to see these a little bit more clear, we got 2 tiers here. Let's see, what can we make this? Make this hours. Gonna make this something else. Bottom tier, hours. Top tier, days. All right. So now we can see a lot clearer. This is one of the things I like about Microsoft Project compared with Smartsheet. You can't do all this fancy hourly stuff, which makes Microsoft Project a beast. It's very robust. It's got a lot of stuff in it, bells and whistles. So there you have your Gantt chart on the right. There you have your schedule. I did define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity durations. Boom, we have our schedule. Now, if you want to change the date, let's say your schedule is starting in the future, just go to project information, and let's go to a different day. Let's say we're starting this June 1st. Put in June 1st. Look at what happens. The moment you click OK, everything moves. This is why one of the cardinal rules in Microsoft Project is to not type a start and finish date at all, except you have constraints. Otherwise, you have all these ugly looking things on the left-hand side like this. You don't want that. So don't type dates into Microsoft Project. There's a lot more on that. In fact, I have a big old course on this. There's several hours where we talk about the cardinal rules of Microsoft Project. That's one of them. Don't type dates in, and also make things as realistic as possible. So now we've put in all of the information. The next thing you hear about in the world of PMI is the baseline right? To baseline your schedule. Now, to baseline your schedule just means to etch these dates in stone, because these dates are predictions. They're not a baseline. You got to put a baseline in there. So let's right-click, insert a column, and put in baseline start. And right-click, insert a column, baseline finish. And now you have your baseline start and finish. But that's not enough. That is just the beginning of the thinking about baselining, because what you could do is assign people to this project, resources. So we could go to view and resource sheet, and we could begin entering our resources. So I'm just going to type in some random names. All right, so we got a bunch of people in there. Let's give them some cost standard rate. Let's give them $50 an hour. The cool thing about this is you can just copy and make all of them the same, right? And we got some costs. We can put some changeability in there if there needs to be any changeability in the monies. All right. So now we've got the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, Phil, Mary, Jane, and Joan. All right, now we're going back to our Gantt chart, and we're going to begin assigning these people to the project. Now, how do we do that? Well, we can do that from a number of places. You can just click on that drop down, and you can select whoever you want. But I also want to show you the effect of adding resources to the project. This is one of the things I love about Microsoft Project, because it keeps you sane. And it keeps you cognitive about what you're doing. You're adding all these people. If they're truly working for as long as you are saying, then you're going to end up racking up a huge amount of money. So it's always good. Let's insert a column. It's always good to see the cost. especially when you've got it cost loaded and resource loaded. It's fun to see the damage done. Fun to see the damage done. All right, so let's go ahead and start putting them in there, and you'll see what happens in the cost column. You see, now we're assigning these people. We got to be mindful. They cost money. They ain't free. Another cool thing is when you type in a resource initial, the names begin to appear. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, all those folks that you're assigning, that's them. So another way you can do this, you can double click on any row. It opens this up, go to resources, and you can begin selecting from the drop down there. And depending on their resource allocation, if they're not really 100 units, which means they're not available for 8 hours, if they're available for 4 hours in the day, or they're available for 2 hours in the day, you want to take all those things into account. So there's a lot more that goes into it. Microsoft Project is very good to show you the resource allocations. So this is how Microsoft Project works. So you can see there's a cost. As I begin to assign people, well, everyone wants to eat the cake. So they can't eat it and have it. Eat the cake. All right. Now we're done. You don't assign resources to a milestone, and we're done. But the typical question is, but Phil, my project, how long is the entire project? I just see a bunch of days. Well, remember, it's just hours. So it's all on the same day. But in terms of cost, if you wanted a roll-up of that, the best way to do that is to include an outline summary task. So if you go to project summary task and click on that, it just shows you the total effect of all the cost. You don't even need to insert another parent task. You just use the project summary task. So now we've got our cost, we've got our start and finish. I think we're good to go ahead and baseline. So as far as baselining, one more thing that the PMI always tells you in the PMBOK guide, you got to have a baseline for your cost, right? So baseline cost. Now we've got the start, the finish, and the cost. And you're going to see what happens when you baseline. The baseline. Okay, so let's go on to our project and project menu, and let's do set baseline. You hit set baseline. The moment you hit set baseline, I want you to see how these fields are going to be populated with the cost for baseline cost, start and finish for baseline start and finish. Let's hit OK. Boom, and there's your baseline. This is the so-called baseline we always talk about. Now you got to see it. Some of you, it's your first time of seeing a baseline cost. Well, this just means management approved it. It's etched in stone, and all you need to do is manage it by making the regular updates, right? As far as to the actual cost, which is another field. Oh my goodness, another field. So we have a field called actual cost. As you are spending money, you want to make sure that it's being tracked. But you don't just want to randomly put monies in. You want to use the percent complete field, which takes us to another field of percent complete. So imagine this project was airborne, and for some reason you decided it's not starting on June 1st anymore. It's starting on March 29th. You would go into project information, and you go all the way back to March 29th. And I want you to see the power of Microsoft Project. See what happens to the carriage when I change it. The carriages. Remember, it's a train. When I change this, see what happens. Changing it to 29th. When I click OK, boom, it changes all the dates. But the baseline is still intact. This shows management that you promised to start on June 1st. But hey, you're early. So it's not every time the baseline is used as a judgment tool for bad behavior or for poor performance. It could be used as a benchmark of, hey, we started early. We're good. You know, we are proactive. So that's the purpose of the baseline. And then you can see in terms of the cost, the moment I begin working this project, let's say the research recipe is 100% complete. Take a look. You're going to see two things happen. When I hit enter, you're going to see an actual cost showing you how much these folks actually spent. And then you're also going to see a progress bar on the right-hand side. You see the progress bar right there? Let me make it clearer. You see that progress bar? And then you see the actual cost. It's tracking the actual cost and the percent complete. And that's how Microsoft Project works. There's so much more I would love to show you, but we don't have enough time. But that's Microsoft Project for you. Okay? Are there any questions about Microsoft Project? Did it make sense? Okay, I hope what I'm saying is making sense. I know I rant a lot, but there's some sense in there's some sense a little bit in what I tell you. All right, so take Microsoft Project seriously. Add it to your arsenal of tools. Put it on your to-do list if you need to. You'll be happy you did. Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you here, because we talked about Microsoft Project so much, talked about it. Let's go into another tool. So the next tool we're going into is Smartsheet. Let's go to Smartsheet. And here is Smartsheet. So I'm going to log in. It's going to ask me, how do you want to log in? I'm going to log in with Google. I've got Smartsheet in my Google. So let's do that. It's thinking. It's considering. Come on, Smartsheet. This is your big opportunity to show the PMPs on the call what you're made of. All right. So while it does that, I'll also say that something else I'm going to be showing you here is the power of ChatGPT, because I know some of you are here just for GPT. I'm going to show you how GPT can be used to build schedules. And you know, like I did the cake bake project, one of the cool things you could do with ChatGPT is say, do you know how to bake a cake? Yes or no? It'll give you a colorful response. It usually does. It doesn't want to play ball today. In fact, it probably wants me to log into my ChatGPT Plus, which I might be forced to if it doesn't respond. But let me ask it. Do you know how to bake cake? Yes or no? Yes, I've been programmed with the knowledge of how to bake a cake. However, since I'm an AI model, I cannot physically bake a cake. All right. Build a schedule, detailed and fun, for baking a cake. Put this in a table. Will ya? All right, so it's going to build a fun schedule, and it's smart. Yeah, you see the time approximations are similar to mine. Choose a recipe, preheat the oven, pour the cake, all this fun stuff. It's very good. So this is a first pass. The thing about GPT is you got to know a little bit more about what you're asking it for it to give you good output. So now it's giving me time, it's giving me duration, it's giving me a task, and that's cool. But for me, who is a scheduler, this is not enough. I need more information. So I'm going to say, please add dependencies and task assignments randomly in a couple other columns. Team members' names are Bob, Mary, Frank, Phil, Butcher, Baker, and Candlestick Maker. Thanks. In a table as usual. You got to talk to it like a human, and it understands, and it'll give you output. So it's giving me the time, it's giving me the task, it's giving me the dependencies. It's smart. It knows that there's no dependency in the very first task, choose a cake recipe, which isn't bad. And it's broken it down. It's making a fun schedule, frosting, toppings. Enjoy your delicious homemade cake. And that's a milestone. You see the way I put a milestone in mine? It actually put a milestone in this one as well, which is very interesting.